The night was heavy with silence, the kind of silence that presses against your skin and makes you hear your own heartbeat louder than usual. And inside a small but tidy apartment in the heart of Lagos sat Nia, a young black African woman in her late 20s. Her braided hair tied neatly into a bun while she wore a slim burgundy dress paired with a black denim jacket that had seen better days. Her posture slumped over the wooden kitchen table where unpaid bills and warning letters lay scattered like reminders of her constant battles. She had just returned from her exhausting evening shift at a modern restaurant downtown where she worked as a waitress, balancing trays for wealthy customers who rarely looked her in the eye. Her dreams of becoming a fashion designer tucked away inside a worn sketchbook that now sat open before her, filled with designs that no one but she ever cared to see. And as she stared at the unfinished drawing before her, she sighed, whispering under her breath, "Is this all I was born for? To serve tables and watch my dreams rot away?" But before despair could completely swallow her, a sharp, unexpected sound cut through the silence. Knock, a sound so ordinary, yet so startling at this late hour that it made her freeze, her chest tightening with sudden fear. Because no one ever visited her this late, and as she turned her head toward the door, the knock came again, louder, more urgent, echoing through the cramped apartment like the beating of a drum signaling change. Slowly, cautiously, she rose from her chair, adjusting her jacket nervously, while her mind flooded with questions. Was it danger? Was it debt collectors? Or was it fate itself demanding to be let in? And when she finally pulled the handle and the door creaked open, there stood a tall black African man dressed in a sharp charcoal gray suit, his polished shoes reflecting the dim hallway light. His short-trimmed hair neat, his deep brown eyes steady yet strangely kind. And his voice carried both authority and warmth as he asked, "Good evening, are you Nia?" To which she hesitated before answering softly, "Yes, I am. Who are you?" And with a faint smile he extended his hand, introducing himself as Mr. Adewale, explaining in words that felt both unsettling and intriguing that he believed this meeting was no accident, that sometimes destiny knocks when you least expect it, and though every instinct told her to slam the door shut, something in his presence made her pause, and before she could respond, thunder rumbled outside and rain began to pour, trapping them in an intimacy neither had planned. So reluctantly she stepped aside and let him in, her small apartment suddenly feeling like the stage of something much bigger than herself. And as he sat across from her, placing a sleek leather folder on the table, his eyes scanned the unpaid bills and then the open sketchbook, and with unnerving accuracy he said, "You've been struggling, yet you still keep sketching as if the world hasn't tried to break you," leaving her breathless with confusion, because how could this stranger know such things? But he continued with calm conviction, telling her that he had once been in her place, hungry, hopeless, overlooked till someone gave him a chance, and now it was his turn to pass that chance forward, his words pulling at the fragile thread of hope inside her, though fear still gripped her heart as she asked, "Why me?" "I'm just a waitress," to which he leaned forward, gently tapping the sketchbook, and replied, "Because greatness never asks if you're ready. It only asks if you're willing," words that struck her soul like lightning, making her recall every night she had stayed awake sewing scraps together, every insult from relatives who mocked her dreams as foolish, every whispered prayer that one day someone would see her talent. And here was a man telling her that her dreams weren't foolish after all. She wanted to believe him, yet doubt tugged at her voice as she asked, "What if I fail?" And with a knowing smile he answered, "Then you'll fail forward, but if you don't try, you'll remain here forever, serving tables instead of serving your destiny." And his words sank deep into her chest as silence filled the room, broken only by the rain, until slowly she reached for her sketchbook and showed him her drawings, modern African-inspired gowns, bold suits, intricate designs bursting with vision, and he flipped through them with admiration, nodding with approval before saying, "These are authentic, fearless. You design not with fear but with vision, and that is rare," before closing the book and making an offer that made her breath hitch. Tomorrow, I want you to come with me. There is a place where your talent will no longer be ignored," which made her eyes widen because tomorrow was too soon. It felt impossible. Yet his voice was firm as he explained that destiny doesn't wait forever, and that she had already opened the door tonight. So now she must decide whether she had the courage to step through it. And she realized she was standing at the edge of two worlds, one of endless struggle, one of daring hope, and with her heart racing, she gave a small but determined nod, whispering, "All right, I'll come," earning a satisfied smile from him as he stood to leave, assuring her that she wouldn't regret her choice. And when the door shut behind him, she stood clutching her sketchbook to her chest, her pulse alive with fear and excitement, staring at the rain-soaked night, as though it had just transformed into the beginning of a story she had always prayed for. And as she whispered to herself, "Maybe this is it," she didn't yet realize that this single knock at her door would not only change her life, but test every ounce of her resilience, her courage, and her belief in herself in ways she could never have imagined. Leaving the audience at the edge of their seat, waiting to see whether she would truly rise or fall, the following morning arrived faster than Naya could prepare for. The Lagos sun piercing through her thin curtains as if announcing that destiny no longer waited. And though her nerves shook her to the core, she dressed with care, wearing a sleek emerald green jumpsuit paired with golden hoop earrings and clean white sneakers. Modern yet bold, clutching her sketchbook as if it were a lifeline, she stepped outside to find Mr. Adewale already waiting in a polished black SUV, his crisp navy suit complemented by a silver tie. His demeanor calm but unreadable as he opened the door for her, saying simply, "Today, you'll see why I came." And with every turn of the city streets, her heart pounded harder until they stopped in front of a towering glass building downtown, its nameplate gleaming. Adewale Fashion House, a name she had heard whispered in the city, but never dreamed she would step inside. And as they entered the grand lobby, her eyes widened at the sight of models walking with graceful precision, designers rushing with fabrics, and assistants holding tablets. Everyone dressed in strikingly modern attire, slim-cut suits, satin dresses, vibrant blazers, a world that felt galaxies away from her humble apartment. Yet here she was being led through it like someone who belonged, though she still doubted herself deeply. Adewale guided her into a conference room where several board members, all Black Africans dressed in elegant contemporary styles, waited with curious expressions. And as she stood at the front, clutching her sketchbook, Adewale announced, "This is Nia. I believe she holds the future of our fashion line in her hands," shocking everyone, including Nia, who nearly dropped her book at the weight of his words. Hesitant but urged by his nod, she displayed her designs one by one, her voice trembling at first, but growing steadier as the room fell into silence. Their eyes fixed on her bold lines, daring colors, and fusion of African heritage with modern silhouettes, blazers embroidered with tribal motifs, gowns inspired by ancestral stories but cut with futuristic artisan. When she finished, she braced herself for rejection. But instead, the board erupted into murmurs of approval, one woman in a royal purple pantsuit remarking, "This is the kind of vision that sets trends, not follows them." The shock of being praised rather than dismissed overwhelmed Nia, tears filling her eyes as she whispered thanks. But before she could breathe relief, Adewale leaned forward and gave her the challenge that would define her. "Tonight we have a gala attended by Lagos elite, and tomorrow investors will be here from across Africa. I want you to create one finished piece by then, something that proves your place in this world. Do you accept?" The room stilled, the weight of expectation pressing heavy, and though fear screamed no, a louder voice inside whispered yes. And she nodded firmly. "I'll do it," earning approving smiles. Hours passed like seconds as she was led into the design studio, an expansive space alive with fabrics, sewing machines, and assistants buzzing with energy. And there, given resources she never dreamed of, she poured her soul into creating her first masterpiece, a gown of deep sapphire silk flowing like water, its neckline traced with golden embroidery inspired by ancestral masks, its train bold yet graceful. Embodying resilience and modern power, every stitch infused with the pain of her past and the hope of her future. Exhaustion threatened her, but determination carried her through the night. And as she worked, she whispered, "If you're watching this, don't give up on your own dreams, because maybe your knock is closer than you think." A natural moment where the story itself becomes a CTA to the audience, urging them to like and subscribe for more inspiring African tales, seamlessly woven into the narrative. By dawn, the gown stood completed, radiant under the studio lights. And when Adewale entered in a fresh charcoal three-piece suit, his usually calm eyes shone with rare pride as he murmured, "You've done what even seasoned designers fear you turn struggle into art." That evening, the gala unfolded in breathtaking grandeur, chandeliers glittering, champagne glasses clinking, and guests dressed in cutting-edge attire, slim tuxedos, velvet dresses, squin gowns, filling the hall with glamour. And at the center of it all stood Nia's creation, worn by a statuesque black African model whose every step commanded the room's gaze. The gown shimmering like a living story of survival and triumph, causing murmurs of admiration to ripple through the elite. Cameras flashed, journalists scribbled, and investors whispered. Yet amidst the awe, one rival designer, envious of the attention, sneered aloud. "Who is she? A waitress pretending to be a visionary?" And the room turned to watch how Nia would respond. Tension thick. But instead of shrinking, she stood tall in her emerald jumpsuit, her voice steady as she declared, "I was a waitress. Yes, but every night I served others. I dreamed of this moment. And now I'm here not by accident, but by faith, by resilience, and by the knock that reminded me to believe again." Her words striking like thunder, earning applause that drowned the critics' jealousy. Sealing her arrival as more than a guest, she was now a force to be reckoned with. Adewale's satisfied smile confirmed it, but he leaned close later, warning her quietly, "This is only the beginning. Success brings storms you can't yet imagine," planting suspense for what lay ahead while Nia gazed at her gown under the spotlight. Realizing that one knock had not just changed her fauteuil, had opened a door she could never close again, and the audience, gripped by her journey, left asking themselves whether they too would have the courage to answer when destiny came knocking. Moral of story: destiny may knock only once. The question is, will you have the courage to open the door?